There's a kind of person who handles everything alone, who figures it out, who stays calm when others panic, who says, "I'm fine," before you even ask for help. And from the outside, they look strong. But inside, there's something else running quietly in the background. A belief so deep, they don't even know it's there. Think about the last time you really needed help. Not just a small inconvenience, a real weight. The kind that sits in your chest when you wake up at 3 a.m. Did you reach out? Or did you quietly carry it, solve it alone, and tell yourself it wasn't a big deal? Most people who never ask for help don't think of themselves as stubborn. They think of themselves as capable, self-sufficient, responsible, and in many ways they are. But there's a difference between choosing independence and needing independence to feel safe. Psychologists call this a pattern of compulsive self-reliance. The term comes from attachment research pioneered by John Bowlby in the 1960s. He studied how people learned from a very early age what they can and cannot expect from other people. And some people learned this: if I need something, I may not get it. If I show weakness, something bad follows. It's safer to handle this myself. That lesson didn't come from nowhere. Maybe your needs were dismissed when you were young. Maybe asking for help led to shame. Maybe the people you depended on weren't dependable. Maybe you were praised so heavily for being the strong one that needing help started to feel like a personal failure. Whatever the source, the brain recorded it, filed it, and built a quiet operating system around it. Before we go further, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken. The pattern you developed wasn't weakness, it was adaptation. Your nervous system did what all nervous systems do. It looked at the environment around you, and it built the most efficient survival strategy it could find. Handling things alone worked. It protected you. The problem isn't that you became self-reliant. The problem is that the strategy never got updated. You kept the armor on long after the battle was over. Here's what's happening in the brain. When we experience early environments where depending on others felt risky, the brain forms what researchers call an avoidant attachment schema. A schema is essentially a mental template, a shortcut the brain uses to process the world faster. Think of it like a filter. Every new situation passes through this filter, and the filter asks one question before anything else. Is it safe to need someone here? For most people who never ask for help, the answer to that question is almost always no. Handle it yourself. Neuroscientifically, this involves the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. For people with this pattern, the act of asking for help can actually trigger a mild threat response. Not because the person asking is dangerous, not because the help won't come, but because the vulnerability of asking feels like standing at the edge of something. The brain says, last time you stood here, you fell. And so you step back every time. There's also something called cognitive dissonance at play. If your identity is built around being capable and self-sufficient and you ask for help, a part of your brain reads that as a contradiction. Capable people don't need help, but I need help. Therefore, I'm not capable. That dissonance creates discomfort, and the easiest way to resolve it isn't to challenge the belief, it's to never ask. So how do you begin to soften this? Not dramatically, not overnight, but slowly, deliberately. Here are 5 principles grounded in psychology that can begin to change this pattern at the level it actually lives, not in your behavior, but in your nervous system. Principle 1. Name the invisible belief. You cannot work with something you haven't identified. The invisible belief driving compulsive self-reliance usually sounds like one of these. Needing help means I'm a burden. If I show struggle, people will think less of me. I can only trust myself. Asking means I failed. Take a moment, genuinely, and ask yourself which one lives closest to you. Psychologist Jeffrey Young's schema therapy framework suggests that simply naming a core belief begins to reduce its automatic power. The schema operates best in the dark. Naming it brings it into the light. Principle 2. Separate the past from the present. Your nervous system learned its lesson in a specific context, a childhood home, a school where vulnerability was mocked, a relationship where your needs were used against you. That context may no longer exist, but the brain doesn't automatically know that. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux found that fear memories stored in the amygdala don't disappear. They get overwritten through new experiences and conscious reprocessing. So the practice here is simple but powerful. When you notice the pull to handle something alone, pause and ask, is this actually dangerous right now, or does it just feel familiar? That question alone creates a gap between instinct and action, and in that gap, choice becomes possible. Principle 3. Practice micro-vulnerability. You don't need to open everything at once. Research by vulnerability researcher Brené Brown, rooted in social psychology and qualitative data, shows that trust is not built in grand gestures. It's built in small moments of disclosure, in small risks taken, in small needs expressed. Start almost embarrassingly small. Ask someone to pass the salt, even when you could reach it. Tell a friend you're having a hard week. Say, I don't know, in a conversation where you'd normally pretend you do. These aren't trivial. They are literal neurological rehearsals for a new way of moving through the world. Each small moment of safe vulnerability sends a signal back to the amygdala. We asked, nothing collapsed. Update the record. Principle 4. Redefined strength. The cultural story we've been sold is that strength means needing nothing. But developmental psychology tells a different story. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky described something called the zone of proximal development, the idea that we grow fastest not alone, but at the edge of our capacity, supported by someone slightly further along. Every great thinker had mentors. Every athlete has a coach. Every surgeon learned by asking questions they didn't know the answers to. Needing others isn't the opposite of strength. It is, in fact, the condition under which strength develops. Let that reframe sit for a moment. Principle 5. Grieve the version of you that had to do it alone. This one is rarely talked about, but it matters. Somewhere along the way, a younger version of you decided to stop waiting for help, not because they wanted to, but because waiting had become too painful. That decision was protective, and it probably cost something. Psychologist Peter Levine's work on somatic trauma suggests that the body holds unexpressed emotional experiences. Part of releasing a pattern this deep involves acknowledging what it took to maintain it. You don't need to perform this grief publicly, but sitting quietly with the recognition that you had to carry too much too early is not weakness, it is the beginning of something else. Here is the simple mental model that ties this together. Think of your capacity to ask for help as a muscle, not a switch, not a character trait, not a fixed fact about who you are. A muscle, one that was perhaps never trained, one that was perhaps trained to stay very, very still. But muscles respond to use. Slowly, with repetition, with patience, they grow. And the more you use this one, the more the old filter gets recalibrated, not erased, updated. The belief shifts from needing help is dangerous to needing help is human. You don't have to dismantle everything at once. You don't have to become someone who shares everything openly or leans on others constantly. That's not the goal. The goal is simply a little more room. Room to say, this is heavy. Room to say, I don't know. Room to let someone stand beside you without it feeling like a loss. The person who never asks for help isn't lacking strength. They're carrying something invisible, a belief written in a language they never chose to learn. But beliefs, unlike bones, can be rewritten. Not by force, by evidence, by small moments of safety gathered slowly over time. You've been handling things alone for a long time. You're very good at it, but you don't have to be.